I have always believed that a blighted urban jungle of concrete destroys the human spirit. We need the greenery of nature to lift up our spirits. This quote from Lee Kuan Yew, the Prime Minister of Singapore, outlines the emphasis that high-level officials in the Singaporean government place on sustainability and pro-environmental behaviors in the country. Singapore is a sovereign city-state and island country located in Southeast Asia. According to the World Population Review, as of 2019, about 5.8 million people live in the 710 kilometers square that make up Singapore. About 74.2% of the population is Chinese, 13.2% is Malays, and 9.2% is Indian. The most widely followed religion is Mahayana Buddhism, followed by Islam, Christianity, and Hinduism. Due to the diversity in Singapore, it has 4 official languages: Mandarin, Malay, Tamil, and English. The city of Singapore began its sustainability efforts in the 1960s, which is way before most countries did. Although their original plans were established due to high unemployment with an unskilled labor force who was predominantly living in urban slums that lacked sanitation and the support of adequate public infrastructure, instead of other environmental concerns, Singapore still implemented policies that would ensure a cleaner Singapore, such as the Keep Singapore Clean campaign and the Clean Air Act. This head start allowed Singapore to continually adapt their initiatives and to be more environmentally friendly. Singapore's population is expected to continue increasing due to migration. An increase in population, along with climate change, rising sea levels, and increasing urbanization, are challenges that Singapore faces in terms of its sustainability. As a response to these new challenges, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew and the Singaporean government created the Sustainable Singapore Blueprint in 2015. This blueprint will serve as a guide for sustainability efforts from 2015 to 2030, with the ability to review the plans to meet land demands while balancing economic and social development. The Sustainable Singapore Blueprint involves cooperation from a variety of players, including the Singaporean government, its people, and its international partners. In fact, a component of the initiative's mission is to inspire Singaporeans to play a part in building a livable and sustainable Singapore. On an international level, Singapore will continue to host conferences such as the World City Summit, Singapore International Water Week, and Clean Enviro Summit Singapore, with the goal of exchanging knowledge and sharing experiences on environmental challenges in different countries, and to develop capabilities and find innovative solutions to these challenges. This would also work as a platform for government leaders and industry experts to connect. These industry experts can help in the process needed to implement these solutions.
Singapore has taken several initiatives to become a green city. 2 of these initiatives are a social and economic plan. Socially, Singapore has emphasized having an active community according to the Sustainable Singapore Blueprint, which was last updated in 2016. There are several ways Singapore has done so. Cities evolved, and old parts of the city may no longer be used, which was the case with the rail corridor. The 2015 Sustainable Singapore Blueprint describes the rail corridor as a railway that goes uninterrupted for 24 kilometers from north to south Singapore. The rail is no longer in use and was taking up space. However, the community sees the railway as a part of the country and its culture. In March 2015, a professional design team was invited to help come up with a proposal that fits with what the community wanted. The plan for the rail corridor has not been finalized, but community input is essential to the rail corridor project. For instance, turning a disused railway track into a continuous green trail for recreation, as stated in the Sustainable Singapore Blueprint of 2015. Another example of how community is needed is in this social plan is the Keep Singapore Clean movement. Singapore is one of the cleaner cities in the world, but The Singapore Sustainable Blueprint states that this is because of its small army of cleaners. The Keep Singapore Clean movement aims to get every resident to take responsibility for the city's cleanliness. In order to get as many people as involved as possible, finding a way to make a community process is essential. It could be an activity in school or for the community, campaigning from students and the community, and creating an awareness of the negative impacts of littering. This can be targeted towards people who litter specifically. This movement is still in process, but there are 15,000 overall volunteers today. Like their social plan, their economic plan revolved around adopting sustainable practices. The economic plan will create more jobs and businesses of sustainable development. The Solar Nova program described by the Sustainable Singapore Blueprint aims to accelerate solar development in Singapore by promoting and aggregating solar demand across government agencies. This program is mainly focusing on the public sectors like school, public housing, and police stations, but also it is incentivizing the private sectors to do so as well. Another one of Singapore's economic plans is the Green Building Master Plan. The 2015 blueprint states that green buildings is one of the most effective ways for a city to reduce its overall carbon footprint. And by 2030, the Building Construction Authority set a goal to have 80% of buildings meet these standards. The standards, however, are consistently changing and are updated every 3 years. The blueprint states that all new and existing public sector buildings must achieve environmental sustainability standards. And to help increase the research amount and to make an accelerated difference in Singapore, the Building and Construction Authority set in motion a $52 million Green Building Innovation Cluster. As of 2015, there are more than 76 million square feet of buildings that are considered green buildings. Overall, both of these social and economic initiatives are ongoing, and as more research is conducted, these plans can change and improve as well.
Singapore has many environmentally sustainable projects. Some are financially backed, others not, but all ambitious and cutting edge. The Solar Nova program is an effort to install solar panels on 6,000 homes under the administration of the Housing and Development Board by 2020. This agency bulk orders solar equipment, thereby driving down the cost per panel. Such a drive has really become a focal point for solar companies and researchers to gain valuable experience. There are still many lessons to be learned regarding adoption of solar energy at this scale. 50 solar companies are hosted in Singapore, and the centralized development effort really offers insight into smart grid management. Smart grid management for solar technology is really only possible with centralized efforts, and this particular drive is very useful. We also see Singapore looking very far ahead with their water recycling programs. The Tuas Water Reclamation Plant and the Integrated Waste Management Facility are two very energy-intensive plants that are being built together. They're co-located. This allows things like biogas generated from the reclamation plant to power the waste management facility. Electricity from the facility can power the plant. They share energy this way. They can co-generate biogas, and they can trade treated water in order to really maximize their efficiency. And this goes without even mentioning that these plants in and of themselves are very advanced. They do things like reclaiming fresh water from sewage and excreta, and by building them together, Singapore is looking very far ahead. Next we have the Green Building Initiative, which aims for 80% of Singapore's buildings to achieve a high standard of environmental performance by 2030. And these standards, of course, include measures of plant coverage, energy-efficient equipment, and, of course, solar panel use. Owners of achieving buildings will earn financial bonuses according to the scale of their achievement, and of course the public sector leads the charge. The government requires government administrative buildings to pass high sustainability standards, and the government routinely invests millions in research and conferences, and are estimated in 2015 about 2,600 green building projects are underway, amounting to around 30% of Singapore's area, offering a positive environmental contribution. And this last effort is not financially incentivized and really centrally driven as the aforementioned ones, but the Singapore Packaging Agreement, is really just an effort to get businesses to reduce the packaging in their products. It's an agreement that 170 companies have signed, and since 2007, around 26,000 tons of plastic waste have been saved. And rewards, while not massively financial, are offered for companies reducing certain reduction benchmarks. And the government hosts, of course, conferences and panels where success stories can be exchanged and advice.
When it comes to sustainability, Singapore sets an example for the world as it is one of the greenest cities on the planet. According to the 2015 Sustainable Singapore Blueprint, the city is striving to be the world's greenest as they work towards a zero-waste nation. Whether it's making alternative energy a national priority, having eco-friendly transportation, or having saltwater desalination plants, it would seem as if the city-state has all of the bases covered. Upon a closer inspection, there are a few areas that are missing in Singapore's sustainability plan. One such area that is not covered by the plan is supply chains. While the private sector is separate from Singapore's Urban Development Agency, I do believe that the supply chains can be improved. According to a survey from the Co 2018 article, more than 50% of Singapore's consumers believe that the company should ensure that their supply chains do not harm the environment. This is a belief shared by both the consumers and many business owners. However, nothing is currently being done to address this. As we learned in lecture, a supply chain is the process of production and distribution of a good. It is a multi-step process, which is part of the reason why making it sustainable is so difficult. One way to improve the supply chains in Singapore would be to measure and keep track of products throughout their lifespan. By this, I mean that Singapore could follow a product once it has been used to find out if it's going into landfills, being recycled, or being composted. With this information, Singapore can identify ways to decrease waste while minimizing expenses. Furthermore, another way which Singapore could improve their supply chains would be by increasing transparency of the companies. In the Co article, she provides a solution to Singapore companies that have a lack of transparency by stating that the government is often the largest purchaser of goods and services in a country. With this, Singapore's government could therefore control the industry by setting certain expectations for sustainability, with the private sector following in their footsteps. Even with small holes in its plan, Singapore is setting an unprecedented case of sustainability and greener living that the rest of the world should follow.